Purchasing a new smartphone, if value is your number one objective, definitely take a closer look at the HTC Desire 510. Hey folks, here OS Reviews. You're watching our video review of the newest HTC phone in the Desire lineup, the 510. In terms of hardware and design, it takes a few design cues from the latest greatest HTC One M8, from the rounded corners, the slightly larger bezels and chin on the front, and the large expensive screen on the front as well. However, in terms of performance and graphics, it's more in line with more basic and elementary phones out there on the market. It has a Snapdragon 400 processor, which is a quad-core chipset clocked at 1.2 GHz. Now, the processor here isn't a slouch. It actually does pretty good in terms of benchmarks, playing back graphically intensive games, browsing the web. We experienced no hiccups at all when navigating through the interface, but we do have only 1 GB of RAM and also 4 GB of built-in flash storage. In particular, the 4 GB of storage is a bit low because if you start adding up a few applications, the phone will actually start telling you, oh, we're full, you have to install a micro SD card or start deleting some of your current info, which is a bit of a downer. Otherwise, we do like the clean aesthetic look of the design. It's very minimalistic, it's very modern looking, and fits in with the current design language of HTC phones. From the front, we have access to a simple microphone, and we also have access to a 4.7-inch multi-touch enabled touchscreen display. The display isn't HD quality, and also viewing angles aren't so hot, but you'll find out that it actually does pretty good under darker and also brighter environments. It certainly is readable, and it does the trick for watching back videos, movies, and games. The front of the device also features a 1.3 megapixel front-facing camera, perfect for Skype, video chatting, and taking selfies. There's also a proximity sensor, so if you put the phone next to your ear when you're calling, the phone automatically dims its screen. There's also a earphone piece, which works pretty well in terms of audio quality in our tests. The top of the device features a power on and off key that's risen above the surface and tactile. There's a 3.5mm headphone jack. On the right-hand side, there's also a volume toggle that's large and easy to press. Overall, the phone itself is also quite slim. Compared to current offerings, where perhaps some Samsung Galaxy devices, you can see how it stacks up pretty well, and we're overall pretty impressed with the clean aesthetic look from the manufacturer. It's elegant, it feels nicely built in the hand, despite not having any metal materials. It's constructed out of a very thick polycarbonate material on the frame, and on the back there's a soft touch material that prevents fingerprints and also offers a nice amount of grip so the phone doesn't slide around. The back of the phone is also completely flush, which allows the device to sit nicely when you're typing or accessing data on a surface, and also has access to a 5.0 megapixel fixed focus camera that actually doesn't have a LED flash or a vanity mirror, unfortunately, but there's also a loudspeaker on the back instead of being on the front like on the One M8. Behind the back cover, you'll find access to a micro SIM slot and also a micro SD card slot. Now, the micro SIM slot is because this is a 4G LTE phone. So no matter if you get this phone for $99 off contract with Virgin Mobile or Boost Mobile, it's going to work with 4G LTE speeds. So very impressive in terms of performance and data speed connections. What's also pretty impressive about the HTC Desire 510, other than its $100 off-contract price, is the fact that it runs on a full version of HTC Sense 6 on top of Android 4.4 KitKat. This is the same version running on the much more expensive HTC One M8. So from the lock screen, it's a pretty elegant design going on, and personally, I really like the Sense 6 UI, and that's just because it's a very clean design. It doesn't distract too much from the phone, unlike some of perhaps LG's or Samsung's design. But you still have a lot of customization and also a lot of visual detail going on from the manufacturer. Something that's interesting about HTC's design is something called Blink Feed. So if we slide to the left from the home screen, we have access to something that's an integrated flipboard-like design. And essentially, we have access to new current articles, news feeds, YouTube videos, or anything that you want to save and have access to that you can customize to your liking. So for example, we have an article that by TechCrunch that we perhaps wanted to see. It's going to automatically appear and we can read more about it. It's a very elegant interface. It's very easy to use. It's quite simple. It doesn't distract too much if you don't want to use it, but it's also there if you do. Something I also like about this phone is the customized notification drawer. Compared to other offerings, perhaps by Samsung, we have a bit more detail going on to the design from HTC. So other than having the ability to turn features like Wi-Fi or Bluetooth on and off, we also have the ability to directly launch into the settings. So you can see here on HTC, we can only turn the settings on and off. But on the HTC One, we also have access to press and go directly into the settings to view more settings and more customization details other than turning those functions on and off. So it's a very intuitive system and overall does a bit more than what the competition offers. Otherwise, we have some new applications and widgets designed exclusively by HTC, and you can see how the entire design goes more than just skin deep. So HTC Sense really goes into the entire interface from the clock. You can see how it's pretty fancy in terms of animations, to alarms, to everything. And you can see how it's very lucid, it's a very nice experience, there's no stuttering at all, so overall it does perform quite well. The HTC Desire 510 also doesn't have physical home keys. It has on-screen controls, which I found to be pretty accurate and easy to press, especially because the chin is a bit larger, so it's easy to reach and actually tap on. And there's also a multi-application view icon that allows you to multitask, so I can simply tap back and forth between currently open applications, and when I'm done with them, I can certainly close them up by dragging them up or down. So very easy to use, and overall, you can open up, I would say, about 5 or 6 applications without having any hiccup going on the phone. So overall, a very clean interface experience going on. You can also customize the device, of course, with live home screens. And there are a few HTC wallpapers and also live home screens that you can select from, and all of them are quite visually attractive and appealing. I should also point out at this time that HTC's 510 also is something that's compatible with the HTC Dot View case. So that's the accessory with the dots that allows you to cover up your phone and then see the time, just like on the One M8. So it's a pretty premium accessory to be found on such a low-cost phone. So we do like the fact that HTC has brought that option over. Unfortunately, the case costs about $40, which is roughly half the price of the phone itself. So that's a bit expensive, but if you can get one secondhand, perhaps through Amazon or used, it certainly is a nice option and a very good conversation starter to look into. On the bottom here, we have access to 5 applications that are fixed. They include access to the call or dialer pad. Speaking of the phone on this device is actually pretty good. Reception is quite strong here in Seattle, and we found that the phone quality itself is also quite impressive. When we tested the device, people said that we sounded like we were talking from a land phone, and also reception was strong. The microphone was easy to hear. The speakerphone was loud and crisp, and we didn't have any drop calls during our testing. So it does a pretty good job as a phone, which is quite important. As far as battery life is considered, it's on the moderate side of the spectrum. It easily lasted us about 1.5 days before we had to recharge it, but with the 4.5-inch screen, it drained the battery life a bit faster than we would have liked. Otherwise, we have a pretty vanilla build of Android 4.4 KitKat. You can see we have access to all the standard Google applications like Chrome, the camera, the clock, and Drive, and some of these have also been more extensively customized by HTC, just like the alarm has and the calculator, but otherwise we have Polar's Office 5 pre-installed, and essentially that's it. And we certainly do like the fact that there isn't too much bloatware going on, but at the same time it's reasonable since 4 gigabytes of built-in ROM is quite low in terms of memory, so they had to cut corners. The experience and the web application experience on the device is actually quite nice as well. We can see that loading up speeds over Wi-Fi is surprisingly decent, and after we've fully loaded a page over here, you can see how the graphics only take a few seconds to fully load. The Flash applications are also fully loaded from the videos, the icons, and the advertisements, and even over 4G we experience no issues at all. So scrolling up and down very fast, you can see there are no checkerboard icons that appear, and it's very lucid in terms of browsing in and out, and also the phone automatically resizes and reflows text. So just like on other higher end devices, it becomes very easy to read, even if you are extremely zoomed in or even zoomed out. So it does a nice, impressive job of being a web browser that performs and functions quite well. So HTC has done a slight amount of customization on top of the standard web browser by also presenting a row of applications on the bottom that allows you to go to quick launch applications to Wikipedia, Facebook, and Twitter, and these are nice features to have in addition to bookmarks on the very top. So it's a nice organized way of looking at your web browsing experience. At the same time, you also have access, of course, to the Chrome version of the browser. It's also built in by default, so it's very easy to use. It's a bit faster in terms of performance and does a bit of a better job in terms of playing back YouTube videos, but both browsers are equally capable in my opinion. Of course, you have access to the Google Play Store, where you have access to tens and thousands of your different games, videos, applications, movies, news, and so forth. So it's a nice way to access more and new content as they appear and as you will want to do so. Now, the camera application function on the phone itself is nothing to write home about. It's not the worst camera we've seen, but at 5 megapixels at fixed focus, it certainly doesn't do the job that well. But something I will say is that the images are taking extremely quickly. So it has a very fast frame capture rate speed, so that's something we do like. In addition, there is a host of different customization settings, typically not found on other standard Android phones, especially on this price caliber. So we have access to autofocus, not autofocus, but auto detection modes. We also have access to self-portrait modes, to face detection modes, anti-shake modes. There's also a panorama mode, ISO settings, different filter settings, and all of these things are pretty fun to play around with, and you can easily toggle between them if you want to get the best out of your shots. So a nice way to interact with your images in general, and not the worst experience at all. You can also take HD video. You can share these images and also print them out directly because there is wireless printing on this phone. YouTube videos and videos in general on the screen itself is also quite impressive. Despite not having the highest resolution in terms of pixel density, it remains quite visible under direct sunlight. Now the visibility decreases dramatically as you tilt the screen's display, but if you go side to side, you can see how it's still pretty viewable. The accelerometer is quite sensitive. It's really only an issue if you're looking at it extremely downwards. So overall, I would say that the display is still pretty usable under day-to-day usage. Nothing that bad at all. So if we want to take a look at our videos on OS reviews, you can see how they load extremely quickly, and scrubbing also works quite nicely as well. The sound quality on the device does a pretty good job of playing back videos. It's pretty loud, it's pretty crisp. It could be more dimensional in terms of adding bass, but for $99 with no contract, you're still getting a pretty impressive video and media consumption device in general. So a pretty good video watching experience overall on this phone. And lastly, we're going to take a look at some popular games and how they run. This is Tank Hero, so keeping in mind we have 1 GB of RAM, 4 GB of ROM, and at the moment a Snapdragon 400 processor. It runs surprisingly nicely. Again, we don't have too much stuttering going on at all, so if we wanted to go in and take a look at the experience, you can see how it's actually very responsive. There's haptic feedback, so the phone actually vibrates whenever you've been shot. And I would say that overall, the video playing experience is surprisingly decent. As long as you don't have 5 or 6 applications running in the background, you still should have some pretty good video playback experience and game playback experience in general. Now, if you start playing back again some very, very high frame rate games that require a ton of GPU, they may stutter a bit more, but for the general gamer, I would say that the phone handles those tasks pretty well with the quad-core processor on board. So all in all, I would say that the HTC Desire 510 is a pretty impressive device. It has a whole suite of different customization options. The Sense 6 UI is something that's very, very clean. It's very elegant. It's something that as the editor and as a personal user, I am a fan of, and overall the phone responds in a very lucid and responsive experience. It features Wi-Fi, it features Bluetooth, it features media sharing, all these standard applications, and even some extras including HTC's dot view and blink feed are included right out of the box. Overall, for the money, for $99 without a contract for a 4G LTE phone on Boost Mobile or Virgin Mobile, I think that this phone definitely checks the boxes if you're looking for something that's very budget conscious but also performs quite well. We like the design and the hardware, but some areas where HTC could improve on would be the camera, the screen in terms of the tilt and the viewing angles, and the fact that the battery life could be a bit longer. It only lasts about a day, but as far as reception and phone quality is concerned, it certainly does the job quite well. Overall, we would recommend this phone, and you can always check out our full written review on our website. Thanks for watching this video review here at OS Reviews. This has been the HTC Desire 510.